It started with a cup of coffee, nothing dramatic, nothing loud, just a quiet Saturday morning where a man was standing outside a corner store waiting for his wife. And somehow in less than 10 minutes, that moment turned into handcuffs, pain, and a lawsuit that shook an entire police department. Yeah, that happened. And if you think it couldn't happen to you, you might want to listen a little closer. Daniel Carter wasn't looking for trouble that day, not even close. He was doing what a lot of people do on a slow weekend morning, just killing a few minutes with a hot cup of black coffee leaning against a brick wall outside Ridgeway Market while his wife grabbed a prescription next door. The sun was warm, not harsh yet, cars rolling by, nothing unusual, nothing out of place. And if you saw him from a distance, you'd probably think he was just another retired guy enjoying his day, clean clothes, calm posture, not bothering anyone. But here's the thing. Daniel wasn't just another guy. He had spent nearly 3 decades in the Marine Corps, seen things most people only hear about in stories, carried scars that didn't always show unless you knew where to look. His left leg wasn't fully his anymore, metal where bone used to be his back, fused in places that reminded him every single morning what war leaves behind. Still, he stood there, calm, steady, the kind of presence that doesn't need to prove anything. Then Officer Tyler Grant rolled into the parking lot slow at first, scanning like he was hunting for something or maybe just hoping to find something. You know the type, the ones who think being proactive means never letting a moment pass without inserting themselves into it. And when his eyes landed on Daniel, that was it. One look, one assumption, and the entire situation shifted. A black man standing still outside a store. To Grant, that was enough to question, enough to approach, enough to turn a quiet morning into something else entirely. He pulled in hard tires, crunching, parked closer than necessary, stepped out with that energy. You can feel it even before words come out, that tension, that edge. Daniel saw it too, and if you've ever been in a situation like that, you know exactly what I mean. You can read it before anything happens. Still, he stayed calm. "Morning, officer," he said, voice steady, respectful, no attitude. Grant didn't return it, not even a nod, just stopped a few feet away, body-angled hand resting near his belt, like he needed Daniel to understand something without saying it. "What are you doing here?" he asked, tone already sharp. Daniel took a small sip of his coffee, not rushing, not reacting, just answering like any normal person would. "Waiting for my wife. She's inside the pharmacy." Grant looked him up and down like he didn't quite believe that answer. "You've been standing here a while." Daniel glanced at his watch, calm as ever. "About 4 minutes. Now right there. That should have been the end of it. A normal conversation, a quick check, move on. But instead, Grant leaned in just a little more and said, "I need to see your ID." And you could almost feel the air change, because that wasn't a request anymore, that was a demand. And Daniel, well, he wasn't the kind of man who just folds under pressure. He lowered the coffee slightly, looked the officer in the eye, and his voice shifted just enough to let you know he meant every word. "Officer, I'm not driving, I'm not committing a crime, I'm standing on a public sidewalk. I'm not required to provide ID without reasonable suspicion." Grant paused for a second, just a second, like that wasn't the script he expected. "I said, I need your ID now." Daniel shook his head slowly. "This is a consensual encounter. I'm declining." And that's when things really started to spiral. You could see it on Grant's face, that frustration, that ego getting bruised because someone didn't immediately comply. He tightened his jaw, stepped a little closer. "I'm investigating loitering." Daniel almost sighed, not annoyed, just tired of hearing something that didn't make sense. "Loitering requires intent to commit a crime. I just bought this coffee. I'm waiting for my wife. There's no crime here." Now people nearby started noticing. A couple by the door stopped watching, sensing something wasn't right. Grant didn't like that, not one bit. "Put the coffee down," he said, voice louder now. Daniel took a breath, slow and controlled, then set the cup down on a nearby ledge. "My hands are empty. Turn around." Daniel stayed where he was. "Am I being detained?" "Yes." "For what crime?" And that right there, that question, that simple, direct question, it hung in the air, because Grant didn't have an answer, not a real one. But instead of backing off, instead of correcting course, he stepped forward and grabbed Daniel's arm. Hard. "Do not touch me," Daniel said, voice firm, not loud, just solid. "Stop resisting," Grant snapped, even though there was no resistance, none at all, just a man standing his ground. He spun Daniel toward the wall, forced his arms behind his back, pushing them higher than they needed to go, higher than they should have gone. And that's when the pain hit. You could see it on Daniel's face, not exaggerated, not dramatic, just real. The kind of pain that tightens your jaw, slows your breath. "I have a spinal fusion," he said through clenched teeth. "You're causing injury." Grant didn't stop, didn't adjust, didn't listen. Click. The cuffs went on. A woman nearby stepped closer, phone already recording. He didn't do anything, she shouted. I said back up, Grant yelled. I'm recording this, she shot back. And thank God she did, because that video would end up being the one thing nobody could ignore. Daniel was walked across the lot, posture still straight, head up, even with his shoulders screaming. He saw his wife's car pulling in, saw her expression change from confusion to fear in seconds. He gave her a small shake of his head. Don't come closer. She understood, stayed back, but you could tell. That moment hit hard. Inside the cruiser, Grant tried to regain control of the situation, glanced back through the mirror. Comfortable, he said, almost mocking. Daniel met his eyes. Comfort is irrelevant. Procedure is. That line stayed with him longer than he probably wanted to admit. At the station, things started to shift. Sergeant Harlow took one look at Daniel, and you could tell something didn't sit right. There's a way people carry themselves, especially those who've been through something, and Harlow saw it immediately. Empty your pockets, he said. Daniel placed his wallet down. Harlow opened it, flipping through the contents like it was routine. Until it wasn't. His hand paused, eyes narrowing as he read the cards inside. Military ID, medical documentation, then the awards. Purple Heart. Silver Star. Not something you just glance over. He looked up at Daniel differently after that. Then he looked at Grant. You run his name. No, he refused ID, Grant replied, still defensive. Harlow closed the wallet carefully, almost respectfully, then turned and walked straight into the captain's office without another word. Grant shifted uneasy now. What's that about, he muttered. Daniel looked at him calm as ever. He knows. Knows what? That you just made the biggest mistake of your career. A few minutes later, the captain came out and the energy in that room changed completely. He walked straight to Daniel, concern in his voice. Sir, are you injured? Yes, Daniel replied. Then the captain turned to Grant, and if looks could end careers, that might have been the moment. Office. Now. The door shut behind them, voices raised, not clear but intense enough that everyone in the room felt it. Daniel stood there, rubbing his wrists, breathing steady, not celebrating, not relieved, just waiting. Because he knew this wasn't over yet. By Monday, that video was everywhere. Social media, news outlets, people arguing from every angle. But one thing was clear to everyone watching. This should not have happened. The investigation moved fast, and what they found wasn't just one bad call, it was a pattern. Dozens, then hundreds of stops, most targeting minorities, complaints that had been brushed aside, warnings that went nowhere. 6 weeks later, the decision came down. Tyler Grant was fired publicly, no quiet exit, no soft landing, decertified. Done. The lawsuit followed, and the city didn't even try to fight it. They settled for $1.2 million, knowing a jury would have likely gone much higher. But Daniel didn't keep the money, not a cent. He donated all of it to a fund supporting veterans facing civil rights violations. When reporters asked why, he said something simple, something that stuck. If this can happen to me, it can happen to anyone. And that's where it gets complicated, because on paper it looks like justice, officer fired, money paid, public accountability. But Daniel still needed surgery. He still deals with that pain. He still remembers that moment. Being forced against that wall, treated like he didn't belong in a place he had every right to stand. So here's the question. Was that enough? Was losing a badge enough for what happened? Or does it take something bigger to actually fix a system that let it happen in the first place? I want to hear what you think. Seriously, have you ever seen something like this before? Have you ever been in a moment where you knew something wasn't right but didn't know what to do? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share your experience, agree, disagree. Because conversations like this don't just matter, they're necessary.